Good evening. Welcome to Town Council special meeting, June 4th, 2020, via electronic communications and some people in person. This special meeting of the Town Council is being held electronically as provided under the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-08.2, subsection A3. It permits public bodies to meet by electronic communications without a quorum physically assembled at one location since on March 12, 2020, Governor Northam declared a state of emergency for the Commonwealth of Virginia arising from the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Purpose of this meeting is for one, approval of the minutes from the February and March meetings, two, approval of the financial reports for January, February, and March. 3, appeal of the historic district review board decision at 301 Madison Avenue. 4, recognition of employees celebrating significant anniversaries. And 5, updates from the town manager regarding the beach reopening plan and July 4th activities. An audio record is being made of this meeting. This meeting is also being live streamed on Facebook, as well as being videotaped for viewing from the town's website after process. Public comments will be accepted this evening via Facebook and emails to clerk@kidcharles.org. Comments are also solicited by email to the clerk prior to the meeting. All votes taken this evening will be by roll call vote and recorded in the minutes. Any council member who leaves the meeting or arrives after the start of the meeting must verbally note their attendance. Only essential business of the town of Cape Charles can be done in this manner. These procedures will remain in effect until the COVID-19 crisis has been alleviated. Do any council members have any questions about this process? Can I get a roll call? And I'll start with the people that's here. We'll start with Councilor Ryan.
Buckles present.
Former president.
Bannon present.
Grossman present.
Bennett present.
Councilwoman Holloway.
She texted me and says she's going to be coming. She's having technical difficulties, so she's on her way.
Okay, let me know that Councilwoman Holloway couldn't log in. She's on her way here. She lives on Redmond Street. We've established a quorum. Public comments, Ms. Libby.
I've gotten one. This is from Jane McKinley. And she said that I see that a discussion of July 4th activities is on the agenda for tonight's meeting, and am in hopes that the town will give creative thought to how some of the traditional activities can be held. We know that regardless of whether or not activities will be available, in all likelihood, the town will be inundated by visitors. And it will be incumbent on all of us to see that proper social distancing and other safe practices are observed. This brings me to the thought of the golf cart parade, especially as I recall images of spectators packed along Bay and Mason. I would like to suggest continuing to hold the parade, but to change the route so that it is much longer, winding throughout the streets of the historic district. By lengthening the route, it will allow people to spread out. Perhaps the lead car will have a sign reminding the crowd to maintain their distance. And maybe there shouldn't be an MC this year introducing the carts, which would create a central point of congregation. Thank you for considering my suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Libby. Item 4, consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the agenda format, approval of the minutes, approval of the financial reports, 1 January 2020, 2 February 29, 2020, 3 March 31st, 2020. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Vice Mayor Bennett?
None for me.
Councilwoman Holloway, any discussion on the consent agenda?
Nothing.
Roll call vote. Councilwoman Holloway? Approve the consent agenda.
Yes.
Let me know the Councilwoman Holloway.
Never calls on me first.
The president and Supreme Court right.
Grossman, yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Item five, special meeting order of business. A is appeal of the historic district review decision, 301, Madison.
Okay, again, there's a lot of material with this, but again, we have to provide town council with all the material that the Historic District Review Board has seen. In this particular case for 301 Madison, this is a church that's currently on the corner of Madison and Strawberry, such that it fronts Madison and the side and the rear are exposed to Strawberry Street. The appeal items pertain to two things. One, the chimney removal, and the second item, the need for the Historic Review Board to review the rear deck railing design. In this particular case, we had a church that's been repurposed or is being repurposed to a home. In the late 90s, there was an addition built on to this particular church in the rear. It enveloped the existing chimney that was part of the church, such that's one of the issues that's facing the applicant right now in his remodeling efforts. In this particular case, we had a couple pre-application meetings, two of which was dealing with zoning questions. But in reality, the March 4th pre-application meeting, I just want to indicate that the applicant were advised that removal of the chimney was most likely be rejected by the board when it got there. So again, we served the purpose there. In that with any of the design details relative to the deck, that had to be submitted with the package, and it ultimately did come with the package as submitted to the Historic District Review Board that's included in your package today. In April, there was a Historic District Review Board meeting. There were a number of things that the applicants were asking for relative to their renovations, all of which were approved through a certificate of appropriateness, except that the chimney on the exterior part of the church was to be retained. And secondly, shop drawings were needed for handrails if they were to be added to a deck. At the time, there was some discussion, am I going to put handrails or not? The bottom line was if your handrails are going there, the board is going to review it or needs to review it. The appeal letter then came in May. That's attached to your package, and the applicants will talk to that. I've added here scope from our Article 8 relative to what the review board has. So the words are extracted there, and essentially the bottom line is to review all. There are certain items that are excluded or left to the zoning administrator, and those are clearly called out in the Article 8. The other aspect there is the reference to the design guidelines relative to chimneys is provided. The recommendation here is, again, we don't have town planner, so it's left up to town council. Two aspects. One, the applicant is requesting for an allowance to remove the chimney. And secondly, the applicant wants allowance to use a railing style that they choose without the need for Historic District Review Board review and concurrence. Those are the two aspects that we're dealing with tonight. And that's all I have as far as presentations. We do have the applicant available, and we have Mr. Shackelford available, and he had provided a write-up also that was distributed to council members this afternoon that he'll talk to.
Thank you, Councilman Grossman. Would the applicants like to speak?
Hello?
Applicants like to speak?
Would you like to speak, Mr. Giardina?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble hearing the mayor. Yes, I would like to speak. I'm here with my wife, Andrea. We're the owners of 301 Madison. The reason we are appealing the decision to remove the chimney is because, number one, we measured it out, about 80 to 85% of the chimney is covered up by the newer addition that was added to the church. So most of the historic part is all covered up by the addition, leaving only about 15% of that original chimney appearing out of the roof, which it appears out of the roof of the addition the way it's set up. The other reason is that the chimney itself, because the addition was added and enveloped around the chimney, it's, as I had discussed in the Historic Review Board meeting, it is right in the middle of a bathroom, making it difficult to maneuver in that bathroom with the chimney pretty much in the middle of it. Working around the chimney has become a difficult task when we're trying to have contractors fix the bathroom. So that's the reason that we want to appeal the decision to see if there's a possibility to remove that chimney. Should I also speak to the railing on the deck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Regarding the railing question that came up in our Historic Review Board meeting, the deck is on the back of the house, and the proposed deck is on the back of the house, and it is attached to the newer addition. The newer addition was built in 1999. And again, it's on the back of the house, and we do realize it's visible from Strawberry, but not Madison. And we prefer to build a deck and have the railing be a more contemporary style, potentially a nautical style, where the railing is horizontal and without spindles being vertical. So we haven't done anything to design it, but what we would like is that style where potentially there's a cable that runs horizontally instead of the vertical spindles. And it appears to me, I never really got a picture of what we were being asked to do is put a historic style railing up. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I understand what a historic style railing would look like. It was probably looks like what's on a typical front porch. But that's not the style that we would like. We feel that because this is a deck on the back of the house, it's a deck, not a porch, that we would just like to be able to put the type of railing that we want without Historic Review Board having to approve. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Danny. Mr. Shackelford?
Thank you. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, good. So the real basis for the decision, you all should have a copy of what I had provided to you, but the real basis of the decision is the fact that the guidelines are extremely clear on these two issues. There's not any sort of ambiguity in that. The design of railings, the design of porches, the design of decks that are visible are things that have to fall into the standards that the guidelines support. So you have to, on page 21, it clearly says choose a design that relates to the design character of the historic buildings in the area. Further, it says it's essential that new construction, whether it be new construction or old construction, in the historic district reflect the integrity of design details and materials which help form the district's character. So we haven't said no to any of his design because he didn't have one. So the deck does not require a railing by code. So we simply suggested you don't have to put one up if you don't want to. But if you're going to put one up, it has to come before the board, just like everything else does that is done to the building that's visible. Now, where we offer a great deal of latitude in porches and decks is when they're not visible from the street. This one's highly visible from the street. The chimney is, again, pretty straightforward. The guidelines on page 19 state that the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided. Chimneys are, of course, an integral aspect, often referred to in the guidelines along with other exterior design elements that define the historic character of the district. Removal of them allows for a slow degradation of the overall character of the district. And while it is an inconvenience in the interior configuration of the structure, it doesn't restrict the use of the building or pose any risk to health or safety. We have had some chimneys that had to be removed in town in the past because they posed a risk to health and safety. These are published guidelines. They were gone over with the applicant at both the board meeting and the pre-application meeting. So there's really nothing of surprise here. This is all stuff that was, talked about several times.
Yeah, my rebuttal to you is that, again, the building is already jeopardized its historic value because there is a vinyl sided addition that put 1999 attached to it. So it's already has so much going on that is not historic. And again, I say that the historic chimney has been covered up 85% right now. It's covered up 85%. So there's so much that has already been violated with it. And we are trying to live there as our home. And the way it is the chimney was built on the outside of the church, not the inside of the church. And the addition has enveloped it. So now the chimney is inside of the addition. Regarding your comments about the railing, yes, it is visible, but you made it clear that the railing had to meet the historic guidelines and it had to be a historic style railing. So even though we have not submitted a shop drawing, which we were told, hey, we'll approve this deck without a railing, and if a railing is to be done, we have to submit a design and a shop drawing, but you made it very clear that the railing had to meet and be a historic style, which is exactly opposite of what we would like to do with our rear yard deck. So that's the basis of my appeal.
I think we're sympathetic to what people want to do. The issue is that the guidelines are there to protect the historic district, and they're very clear on these issues. And yeah, there's certainly been compromises to the building. That's all the more reason to make extra efforts to retain the elements that are historic and the elements that are there. And as far as the chimney being covered up, I dare say most chimneys, 75 to 80% of the chimney is covered up, and only a small portion of it is visible through the roof. We don't really care what happens with the part that's on the inside.
I got a question for Councilman Marshall. So, I'm going back to somebody here. But if there's not been a denial, there's really not, there's nothing to appeal on, so I'm going to
He's appealing because the chimney,
It's appealing to chimney, but the railings is never submitted, it's never been denied.
okay, so he's appealing the fact that he doesn't want to go to the historic review board. That's the appeal aspect, not the type of thing. He doesn't want to go to the historic review board for his particular situation.
Okay.
all right? So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little different. It's a little different, but again, he has a question that he's put forward to us.
Right, okay. I was just saying, there's no decision to be made, there's nothing to appeal.
Correct.
He's appealing, he don't want to go to.
Right. So if he were to proceed with railing and we uphold the board, he would have to bring a railing design and have reviewed and has the ability to appeal that if at that time he chooses to do it.
And from what I'm taking, the chimney, in question was on the outside of the church, and they covered it with an addition.
The person who built on this addition, Frank is saying, added a bathroom right at that juncture, such that when you walk in the bathroom door, you've got to squash down 2 foot, I'm not sure what it is, and then it opens up to the balance of the bathroom. So the person that worked it in 1999 built it that way.
Any council members have any questions for the applicant, Mr. Grossman or Mr. Chapter? Vice Mayor Bennett?
I don't have any questions.
Councilman Holloway?
It's not a question about the appeal, but I wonder if we should try to handle them as two separate.
I think we should.
Yeah.
So, well, if there's no discussions, no more questions.
No, the only thing I want to say is basically, if you guys remember when we had that discussion with the Virginia Historical Group that came through, that basically there's some latitude with the new additions do not have to convey the historic look from what they were telling us. You guys remember, it to be very modern. As long as the historical portion of that entity wasn't changed, any addition, i.e. deck or whatever, can be added to the structure and it can be modern. It didn't say it had to reflect the historic view. That came directly from the people from the state. You guys remember.
And I agree with that, but this chimney is part of
No, I'm
the
not talking
original.
about the kitchen. I'm talking about the kitchen. So that's one thing that part, I definitely agree with that because that's a whole new structure, so it shouldn't have to be.
Well, that's for me, that's for the Historic Review Board to review.
So they should have, I'm just saying, Terry should have some pretty broad latitude there because of modern looking versus historic. It doesn't necessarily have to look historic, is what I'm saying.
Can I speak to that just a moment? So there is no sort of requirement that a building look like exactly like a historic building. That's what they mean by that. They don't mean that you can just sort of put up a modern skyscraper next to a historic building. They mean that it's okay for the building to have different features from the historic building, but the guidelines are very clear that there are specific requirements about what can be built and what it looks like. You can't just build anything. It doesn't say that in the guidelines.
That's not what they said.
But how can you have latitude when there's guidelines? I mean, the guidelines, they list, these are the materials, these are the styles that you can use. They don't say, come to the board with
Existing structure, not a new structure.
Yeah, I just say the issue at hand is not what they're going to review, approve, or reject. It's the fact that they get the opportunity to review or not around. That's the issue.
That's the issue. And then, yeah, the chimney. So with that being said, we'll start with the chimney.
All right, I'll make a motion that the chimney be retained.
Got a motion, we got a
Second.
discussion on the chimney being retained.
Just to be clear, Mr. Mayor, that motion is to deny the appeal for the chimney, correct?
That is correct. President Bowman?
I've lived in multiple historic districts and I certainly appreciate the needs here, but chimneys, I think this is a pretty standard feature across any well-protected historic district. It significantly changes the profile. And if there's not a compelling need, and it's a matter of preference, I don't think it meets the standard for appeal.
Any more discussion? All right, we'll start with the roll call. We'll start with Vice Mayor Bennett up on the screen.
Yes.
Grossman?
Yes.
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 Buckles, yes.
Oh, yes.
So let it be known that that portion of the appeal has been denied. That's it, everybody? Second portion of the appeal is not to take the decking or railings back to the historic district review board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so can I get
And
a motion?
I'll make a motion that we deny the appeal and require decking material to be reviewed by the Historic District Review Board.
Motion.
Councilman Grossman, can we clarify that it's not the decking material, but the railing material?
Yes.
Style,
that is
railing
correct.
style.
The railing, yes.
Right.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Vice President. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I'll just add that we don't have an exception in this particular case for this particular item that would be reviewed either by the zoning administrator or not reviewed at all. Okay, we do have a couple cases where back in June of 2019, there were two applicants in front of the Historic District Review Board that dealt specifically with railing. 206 Harbor had a stop work order because a porch, now this is the front, granted it's front, somebody was adding railing onto their porch. That was stopped, they brought it in front of the board and the board passed judgment. That same meeting, 653 Monroe, which is a duplex, one floor above the other in this particular case, where they had a stairwell going up, a stairway outside going up to the second floor. That again was also questioned by the review board and made a condition that the railing had to be sympathetic to the neighborhood. So again, the board does review those particular aspects, and I'm not going to pass judgment on their decision-making, but I am for the fact that they need to be reviewing according to Article 8. Those aspects that we deem that they should be reviewing.
Any more discussion? Roll call vote. Councilman Buckles? Buckles, yes.
One more yes.
Grossman, yes.
Oh, yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Let me know that that appeal was also denied. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Schaffer. Up next, item 5B, recognition of employees who celebrate significant anniversaries. First of all, I'd like to say that both of these guys are very valuable, keeping water flowing and food flowing and everything else. So I want to say I worked for the time that Dan was hired, and I think he brought something extra to the time with his mechanical skills and everything else. He's been with the town now for 10 years, or waiting to be 10 years, but it is, I still got some. I want to turn, no one's here tonight, obviously, but I want to thank Dan for his services and all his time. Done way beyond duty of what the duties is. Thank you, Dan. Next one is William Powell, who's also part of that team, public utilities team. Mr. Powell's been with this town for 30 years. I can tell you, he's seen a lot of crap. But it's seen a lot of ups and downs and different turns of this town in the past 30 years. And so, with him being there 30 years, and of course, we did Gerald last year at 35 years, that you have a lot of knowledge between them on where everything is in this town, and that's valuable. And it's been a great asset for the time I've been here since 2005. So thank you, Billy, if you're watching. Thank you very much. Item 5C, time manager updates. John on deck. Actually, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everybody hear me okay? Do I need to get near a mic? Steve, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, so last week you gave me a week to get ready to open tomorrow. We're ready to go. I did submit a plan that was posted to the packet for the public, and you received a copy of it as well. It's designed to cover all the requirements of Executive Order 65 laid out last week. So tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. is when we start. The governor set the hours, not us. So that from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. every day, we will have beach attendants there to monitor activity and make sure that people are, basically their main function is to make sure that everyone's staying in a safe distance, everyone's doing the requirements that they're required to do. 2 attendants there on the weekends and 1 during the week. Their primary duties is to monitor what's going on, to include not just the beach requirements, but also town requirements. So we have local ordinances like the dog law. So if they see someone walking a dog on the beach when the hours are not supposed to, they will very politely ask them to leave. And so they'll be watching things like that. There will be a central location. They'll have a shade tent and cooler with water and caps and all that. They will make a physical patrol of the beach at least once every hour. If there's any problems with anything, then they also have radios that they can talk to each other on, or they can call the police officer on duty. They're not going to get involved in any kind of confrontation. They're there to monitor only and to give suggestions and be polite. And if there's any problem, they will call the police to deal with that. The second part of that is the signage that directs people to what the social distancing requirements are, and what the prohibitions are. So those signs were developed and are now in place. Basically, again, it limits people from 6 feet social distancing. Actually, the requirement for the group size changed since I asked Mr. Buckles to do that for me, and he very kindly corrected it. Originally, we made it with 10, and it now says 50, because as of yesterday, the governor increased it to 50. The 50 is the maximum requirement now for group size, and the signs reflect that. The beach closed sign out on Route 13 has been taken down, so that we have the normal signage out there now. Also, although it's not specifically referenced to the beach, the fishing pier will also be open, so Public Works, they final touches on that to make it safe. Now, all of the repairs we were hoping to do are not done. They did about half of what they were supposed to do, and that's why you should go out and take a look at it. We'll do the next part in the fall after the season. So materials that are down there tonight, those will be removed in the morning. The sign, right now, if you go down there right now, it still says closed, but tomorrow morning, those will be gone. There'll be new signs that will welcome people to the pier, again, asking them to maintain the 6-foot distance and not to congregate in large groups. The restrooms will be open in the morning. We have contracted out with the contractor to do that, because the cleaning requirements in the second ward are quite intense. They have to be disinfected every 2 hours. Not only the restroom, but all high-touch areas in the area have to be wiped down every 2 hours. That simply exceeds our ability to do that with town staff. So I have exercised my authority under the emergency ordinance to execute a short-term contract for 3 weeks, give us time to bid out the rest of the work for the rest of the summer. So for 3 weeks, we're operating under that contract, and then we will get bids in 3 weeks for the rest of the summer to maintain that level of cleaning until the governor says we don't no longer need to. Additionally, with that bid, I have put alternate options of scope of work in that bid to go beyond just the beach. So to include Central Park cleaning as well. So the gazebos, the playground, tennis courts, bathrooms, those sorts of things. Now they won't be every 2 hours, but they'll be every 4 hours, but much longer period of time throughout the day. So we'll wait and see what those costs are when they come in. We don't have to award them, but it's an option for us to look at to keep our visitors and residents safe. It's a very unusual season. Also for enforcement, as I said, the police will do the enforcing. In addition to our normal patrols on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, we will have an additional police officer on duty for the bulk of the day from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They will also make hourly patrols of the beach, staggered half hour off of the attendance. So essentially, on weekends, we're doing a patrol every half hour. And again, they're the ones that will handle any complications. Now, one of the other requirements in the executive order was to come up with a plan for overcrowding. So, I don't know if it'll become an issue or not, but on really busy weekends at high tide, we could potentially not have space to maintain social distancing. That's the issue. We're going to have to start restricting access to the beach, monitoring the flow, and trying to regulate, people on and off. If that happens, we will close down every other entrance to the beach. We have signage made up already that will direct people to the next entrance. And each entrance will have to be manned, not by a police officer, but by either attendants or town staff, until we can get past whatever that overcrowding situation is. That's the bulk of the plan. This is not going to come cheap. So when you add in all the costs for all the different components, and again, we won't know for sure until we get all the bids in, and there's still a lot of variables out there. But our working budget right now is probably between $55,000 and $60,000 is what we think this is going to cost us just to maintain the beach, not the other areas that I mentioned should we choose to award those alternates. Now, as I mentioned last time, we did get some good news. There is some COVID-19 funding coming through the county. Our share is about $86,000. So we're hoping that will cover the bulk of this. The town has also already incurred many thousands of dollars worth of expenses that we can also use that money to defer. And then there's still maybe a little bit left over to do things like Central Park cleaning and such. We'll know better in a couple of weeks. In addition to all of that, with the help of Main Street staff, we had got some hand sanitizer dispensers here really quick. Karen did some magic and got, there's a backlog of these things, but she managed to get us 24 of them. And so they're here. Public Works has put them up on lampposts and Main Street, Central Park, and at the harbor. They're not pretty. They're temporary. They're mounted to the lamppost right now, but they're functional. And then Karen actually went around today and got stickers made up. People weren't sure what they were, so now I saw her putting them up on my way here. So now they have stickers that show that they're hand sanitizer and refillable, so that we can refill them. So there's 6 of them throughout Main Street. There's 3 in Central Park, and then a number at the harbor. So they're up and ready for tomorrow as well. That's pretty much the beach plan. Do anyone have any questions?
I have one question, John.
Hold on,
Is that
Steve.
all right?
Right.
Go ahead, Steve.
For the contracts that you're going to let, particularly the cleaning contract, is that contract going to be able to be canceled when the restrictions come off?
Yes.
Or does it?
Well, we'll have our standard cancellation language in there.
Standard cancellation language has various time lengths with it, so whatever the minimum time length is, I think that needs to be in there, because as these things have gone, we don't get a whole lot of warning when we're getting ready to change conditions.
That is an excellent point, yes. I'll make sure that's in there.
You had mentioned 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. What happens at 6 p.m.?
The beach will remain open 24 hours.
Without an attendance?
Right. We don't have the ability to enforce any kind of beach closure, but if you remember, the reason for why we're doing this is a public health threat, a lot of people in a small area. And it's our judgment that if we're 9 a.m. or after 6 p.m., that threat is not going to be there.
Yeah, okay,
So,
okay. There are some other requirements in there, such as taking temperatures of employees. Is that built in?
that's built in. Jen's going to be in charge of all of our attendant program, and she's developed a log of all the information that they're supposed to be reporting, not just the temperature. But also
Yeah, so that was my next question. That's for the Monday morning metrics that go to the
Yes,
health
sir.
department or whatever. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the last thing I had was these additional bathrooms that we had purchased, rented, portable. Where are they right now?
We have two porta potties right now behind the library. We have an ADA one and a regular one. So right now we have the beach restrooms open. At Bay, we've got the porta potties at the library, and we hope to have soon the new restroom at Peach Street. So we are working on that. It is going to require a small adjustment to our lease with the railroad. We want to adjust off that asphalt into the grass. I've talked to Jay McNally. I don't think it's going to be a problem. We're just going through the steps to do it. We're going to be bringing in water and sewer. It wasn't practical to operationally cost-wise to be filling and pumping indefinitely. So we're moving ahead with all of that. It's still going to be a couple weeks out, but it is an unbudgeted expense. Okay, this was not budgeted. You know, it's going to probably be around $5,000 or so where it's all said and done to get this thing installed. I'm working on making that happen. But just giving you a heads up that there is going to come at a cost, and it's still a couple weeks out. But once it's in, then we should have bathrooms kind of spaced out in Peach Street, Pine, and Bay.
Or,
Well, yeah, I meant Main Street. Yeah.
We probably could get it covered in our CARES Act. When we first did Charlie's, yeah, if we have money there, I mean, we got a lot of money, that's gonna probably add up pretty quickly. But I mean, the reality is if we got $25,000, yeah, so we have to spend 5 to implement it. I think it's a pretty good deal for something that we've needed for a long time.
Just to be clear, it's park, and the beach, fish pier, park, tennis courts, no gazebos, no playground.
Correct. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. So, and that's not our decision. That's the governor's decision. So the governor in Executive Order 65 still is keeping what he calls places that where people are likely to congregate, like pavilions and gazebos and play sets closed. So that's not our call. That's still the governor's call. So yes, so both gazebos are still closed. Although I anticipate they will be open eventually, so I included the gazebos in the scope of work for the contractor so that we can start wiping them down as soon as we can start letting people up there. And even though they're closed, people, that's the only shade out there. People are likely to
And you're
congregate there.
speaking of actually the pavilion. because the gazebo's in the park and it's got millions all the time. So, just so we know.
Well,
I mean, I have a bird's idea, but it's pretty steady use, which is great.
For all of us that's been here for a regular while, we wanted to beach the gazebo too.
Yeah.
The gazebo before the gazebo.
Right.
yeah,
But one on the beach, no, seriously, sidewalk goes through that.
right.
That's,
And I think, I mean, if we were to consult and ask the question, my interpretation of gazebos and pavilions being closed are like large gazebos and things where people congregate
right.
in masses. I don't think it really pertains to us, but we interpret how we want. But I'm pretty sure that's the intent. Of those large, pavilions and things like that.
One thing we did do to to help discourage congregation under the structure at the beach, whatever you want to call it, we've taken the benches out and put them on the sidewalk. So there's nothing, you can't sit down in there right now. But we can easily move them back once we're ready.
I have a question. It relates to bathrooms, but I know it also relates to town buildings being open. When is the library opening?
I'm not opening town offices to public yet I want to wait a couple weeks till after this influx comes in, we see what the numbers are. With restrooms right there at the library, I didn't feel there's a huge need to do that.
Well, the porta potties for gentlemen, yes, porta potties are pretty quick and easy. For ladies in particular, like older ladies, the porta potty is not an option really. And getting down to the beach, and we have a lot of people who are seniors, and that's a pretty long walk. So I don't, our solution last year that worked really well were the library bathrooms and the porta potty bathrooms. I know we're trying to work hard on getting the other new ones in. I just hope we can really make that a really high priority, because as we say, the influx of people have to go to the bathroom. And 2 porta potties in our central area are going to be a problem. And we have some business owners here that could speak to that better than I, but that's the word I've heard all along. So we have to kind of keep that in mind in our decisions. It reduced a lot. I'm sure Ann can speak to that.
So what is the shore libraries? Is shore libraries up and down? There's a shore library.
They're all network. So guidance is coming out of Acronac. Obviously, can be overruled here, but there is guidance being put together at that level, coordinating all.
Right. Yeah, we can do things differently. Like we kept our computer lab open whenever no one else did. Things like that. But yeah, again, we don't have a normal situation where we're keeping that bathroom open and we're maintaining it ourselves is one thing. This is a different year, and I don't have contractors doing that, and I've got safety of my staff to worry about. I get the porta potties are not ideal, but in an emergency, do what you have to do.
Well, I just think that's easier to say from a gentleman's perspective, and we don't have to say. So we just need to make the other ones a priority. I don't disagree. It's a different year, and this is a difficult situation, but we really need to push to get the other bathrooms.
We are. I'm making it happen as fast as I can. Yeah, are we done talking about the beach plan?
Are you done talking about big plan? Steve? You got anything to add to the beach?
You talking to me, Smitty?
Yeah.
You sound like Charlie Brown's parents in the movie. Very difficult to understand. So I don't have anything to say because I can't understand what you're saying.
Partner. Just agree with it.
All right, then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move on to the 4th of July activities. this is really hard for us to deal with, and it's even harder for me having never been through it before. But I understand it's a premier event here, and it gets quite crowded. And I'm concerned, I mean, right now, we technically can't do it. I mean, no gatherings of more than 50 people right now. But that's 4 weeks away, and we've seen how fast things can change. But we can't react on a dime either. So with Tony Penning closing up in Chincoteague and all the other 4th of July fireworks in the area closing, if we were to be open, we would be flooded. So I guess I'm looking for some guidance here about what your thoughts or expectations are with the ability to have some or all or none of our traditional 4th of July activities. And Jen's here who engineers the whole thing. She's here to answer any questions you have as well. I appreciate your thoughts on the topic.
So were you saying everyone else might cancel their fireworks, or they already
I
have?
understand they have. Everyone else is canceled, so we would be the only show in town, literally.
And there are like a draw from the Canteen County down north. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Probably 10,000.
Oh, can I add one more thing? I'm sorry. We did consult our 4th of July fireworks contractor. We've already paid them half. The other half is due afterwards. Because of the unusual nature of this year, he is willing to roll that forward a year. So it wouldn't cost us anything if we just had that be next year's deposit. So we wouldn't lose any money if we decided to cancel.
What kind of notice would it be?
Notice to give who?
This is gonna do it.
Like yesterday?
5 weeks.
Yeah.
He's really flexible, but, you know, he wants to know as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna guarantee you, I'm the only one on the staff up there right on myself right now and say this. Our Independence Day, our celebration, bring it on, fire on. That's where I'm at. We've canceled every damn thing, from one thing to another. It's our freedom Independence Day. People fought for us to have our freedom. And I'll be damned if I cancel our Independence Day. So you all can do what you want. You can say no, you can say yeah, but damn it, let's carry on. Fire them off. Boom.
What about the parade? That's the other big.
Bring it on. Bring it, all of it. It's our Independence Day. There was a lot of people that died so we could be free. And I'll be damned if we would just roll over to a virus and not be free. So that's my fault.
Steve Adams.
That is me. This is me speaking. Whatever Dan's done in the past.
That's the same thing people are saying down in Miami Beach, right?
Yeah, and maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's me. So you all six of you here, I'm gonna get a vote.
Yeah, that's why one thing about fireworks, my wife just texted me this. If we don't have our fireworks, people are still gonna flood the town to watch Cherry Sticks fireworks.
Good. That's true.
Yeah, because they're gonna continue with theirs. Theirs are private. They did theirs memorial day. Just the food for thought.
That's my take on it. You say, I don't get a vote. I don't get food. You're all right.
I completely agree that we should make our independent decision on moving forward. I think it's a little reckless to say, let it rip, without some precaution. And if we can creatively come up with what they are, I mean, I'm sure Jen's been thinking and everybody's been thinking forever, what is that, you know? But when I think of that crowd of, in our town, of massive amounts of people all in one area, it's one thing if it was Cape Charles, and if we did something to control the amount of people. I think it's irresponsible to say, we'll take the whole Eastern Shore and let them come. It's already difficult for our police to manage that night, and the aftermath is difficult on a regular basis. I just think if we're going to say, let it rip, we need to think with what are our precautions in doing that, and still keeping the flare so to speak, of our celebration.
I understand, I mean, that's, when I say that, there's gotta be some, there's gotta be some, you know, sort of whatever it is, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, July 1st, the governor can slap us with another $9 million number, it's all canceled, and then we'll do whatever, I mean, that's the number to do that.
Well, 4 weeks to the date is July 3rd.
Yeah.
I expect on July 2nd. I looked at the calendar today.
No, realistically, there's those fireworks, people can come to town. If we want to restrict some of the vendors or something like that, fine, but I think great, I think, and I know people can line up, but right now, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people walking around the streets all over the country and would not wear a mask. or
Well,
doing
like I
anything.
said, we're 14 days right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so-
before we go to
Yeah,
Bob
right.
Brown on that.
I don't look at it, let me just say this, I don't want to say, no, I know we can cross down, squeeze on, you know, pull something else out of your hat. But personally, my take is I like to see at least most of it, if not all.
So we can certainly do, but I guess I just, let's,
Jeremy?
I mean, I like 4th of July too, but with the beach being open on weekend and me forcing my guys to be here working extra, and then 4th of July and everything that's going on elsewhere already at this moment to bring a large crowd in here, you're tearing us apart. Six people, I mean, we're dragging already and it's June 4th, just by what's going on right now. And that's, right now, we're scheduled to deal with stuff all through the weekend. Again, it's up to you, I work for you, so just telling you.
Yeah, I
It's
get
just
it.
6 of us and it's not a happy time in America right now against me and everybody else.
That's valid, very valid, very
I
valid.
got FBI update today about credible threats on law enforcement's homes, people looking at your home where you live. You know, I don't want to sit here and say think about us, but you know, how much can we talk before something breaks here? So it's a shame I gotta sit here and come out here all night, protect everybody else, and leave my wife home with kids and assault weapon strapped to my bedroom door so she knows how to use it if I'm not here. You know. And again, you're the boss. If you say force, we'll be there, but just,
How about, you all stand and work out what plan or something, man?
okay, there is no management plan. Now, let's be real, okay, there's no way we can do this thing, I'm not saying that, we can't do this according to social distancing restrictions, that's just not possible. We got a 6-man police force, we got, you know, a handful of other people who work this. You do this, we just have to do it with our eyes wide open, that we're not in control. Now, Jen had the idea, we could stretch the vendors out maybe a little more along bit, spread them out, it costs us parking, but okay, that we can do little things like that. But when it comes to fireworks on the beach at night, there's no way you're gonna stop that. When it comes to the parade, people are gonna be lined up there. So let's not kid ourselves. I mean, I'll support you to do it. I'll help make it happen, but let's just make sure we do it with our eyes wide open and don't think that there's some magic bullet out there that we can make everything with the restrictions.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see the fireworks too, but logistically, capacity wise, I mean, we probably have 5,000 people in town that weekend, and I bet it increases by at least 50% that night. It's hard to manage in a good year. Yes, some people are gonna come to see Cherry Stones, but it's not gonna be as great of a draw without ours. We frankly, it's unmanageable. I think it's to be reckless. And why are we doing everything we're doing between now and then? We're gonna take one day and say, have the whole shore with the high rate that we've had, even if it's declining, let's have the whole shore come into our town and have everyone stand shoulder to shoulder. It makes not the whole shore.
Yeah.
You're gonna get fewer people if you don't have the town fire. There's gonna be less of a draw.
It's sure expensive stuff, there's gonna be enough to be doing.
I think,
The more attractions, the more the draw. That's common sense.
I think
So, one of the things, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, spreading vendors out is one thing, less parking, ideal. Less parking we have, the more people that want to stay. Don't open up any fields for parking.
Parking will occur. If you drive it off Bay, it's gonna move
Oh,
in
that
lane.
already does, and then it comes down as far as
I
I.
get that, but then we can put up restrictions, put up whatever can, and put the parking signs, whatever you do that. We got the authority now to do that. So we can set these no parking areas if we wanted to. It's just a way of minimizing people coming in, staying.
I think either way, when we go in listening to Chief Pruitt, I've always been concerned that they were way overstrapped. Not just that day, but in particular. And, you know, to me, this is the time we reach to the county and to the state and say, we're gonna have this influx of people, we need support, we need, and very defined support and what that looks like, because otherwise I think we have to block it off. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, we can block somewhere.
You can't.
You can shut down the certain time, right? Yes, you
You cannot shut the town down. You don't want to let you shut the road down.
can. You can check by address.
They're not doing that.
We do hire 2 officers from the county every summer, I mean, for the 4th of July, but that's something we have to pay for because they can't send their on-duty officers. They're just as stretched as we are for the 4th of July. So we have, anybody we hire or anybody we bring in here, they're gonna have to be paid, so that is an extra expense. The state police does come and direct traffic out of town that night, and that is basically all they're capable of doing.
State police are extremely short-handed and spread all throughout the state. I think right now they're 8 or 10 and on the shore, so again, everybody's strapped.
I mean, all those agencies send us what they have, but they're just as busy as we are. I mean, there's more people here, but they are just as busy that weekend as we are. So it's just really not an option. I'm sorry.
My thing would be that I'm 83 years old. I'm in very, very good health. There are a lot of people in town who are in their 80s, 90s, who are houses full shaky. And some of them being unpatriotic. You have to solve the whole research. Women want to do life later. But you're not going to control crowds. You're going to.
Well, I mean, you know.
I had a question for Jen with regards to the parade. Have people been approaching you to participate as an organization in the parades?
Honestly,
Or the
this is
vendors?
the first year I've not had any phone calls. Now, it is early though, because you know, everybody's last minute, but I have not had any phone calls about the parade at all. They've all been from vendors asking for to know if they should be stocking up.
Because I'm not sure if you'll have as many participants, you know, with horses and what have you. You'll have the fire departments and what have you.
No, we don't take pre-signups because it just has never worked. It show up that day on the.
Oh, is it?
They don't-
It's even show up on those?
Yes, it is.
And people will still come. I mean, the golf cart.
Yeah, golf cart, yeah.
They're just waiting for the word, you know. And they'll be decorating them up and ready to line up and then forever line.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Very, very difficult to follow what's going on. The sound quality is so poor. But, you know, it's a difficult, as many of these decisions are, decision to make. My vote would be to delay any decision till the last minute possible. And if we have to work through some things that if we cancel all the vendors early, if we do, I don't know. In 2 weeks, the governor could lift all the restrictions. I don't know. In which case, suddenly everything's wonderful. And I hate to cancel it before we have to cancel it.
I can make it happen whenever you all decide.
Let me ask council this. Realistically, if it comes down to it, am I still talking about Charlie Brown's teacher, Steve?
A little better.
If it comes down to it, I think fireworks, we can probably continue on, but if it comes down to it, as we get closer, because fireworks, it takes time to get that stuff, and I think we're probably already coming. Not actually like a single. But the other stuff, if we need to, don't look 2 weeks out, it don't look like we should do a parade. Maybe we should leave it up to John.
But thanks, boss.
You are our emergency man.
Well, we can send it to a committee.
Wasn't it already kind of less? Wasn't better than we were already at?
I believe the fireworks are already ordered, he's already ordered them, but due to just the way things are, he's really work with us whenever we decide. He doesn't want to make things any harder on us than they've already been, so.
He's not giving us a bed.
He would love to know tomorrow, of course, because he has other things to do, but he is willing to work.
Either way, whether we have the fireworks or not, it's been established that people will come. So we have to establish how we're going to handle that. Either way. If we have them, larger numbers, probably. If we don't have them, they're still coming. And we need to figure what that out. Who knows if it's going to be beyond 50 people by then? I'm guessing that's going to be. I think we will shift into phase 3 if I had to bet some money on it. But we have to be prepared on what that looks like. It may be phase 3, but if you're in crowds of X amount, everybody needs to wear face covering. We need to think that through. I don't think it's fair to dump it on John completely. But if that's what he wants, I'll support that. But I feel like this is one we have to own. As a foundation, we've made a lot of tough decisions over the last 3 months, and this is one of the hardest. But I think, we've got to think strategically through what that could look like on plan A, plan B, and have them both set and go forward with whichever one comes into play.
John, I don't feel like we're giving you much guidance here.
No, this is very helpful. No,
I can tell you that the worst parts of that day, as far as crowds, is the parade. I'm sure everybody's seen the mass amount of people on Mason Avenue for the parade and the fireworks. Middle of the day is not bad, other than the beach, of course.
Right.
So it might be good we're doing alcohol sales as well, because we don't need to add any other.
Next stuff like that, you probably.
And I think your idea of spreading them.
I think we need to take all of the admin, or else we limit the vendors. They need to be spread out, and that will help our crowds, that will help.
But there's not a lot of numbers, it does so that's a perfect solution for that.
So, how you gonna spread them out? You can't.
We're gonna have to get more street closure.
I can't bring everybody in at 9 o'clock in the morning and hold until midnight at night. I stagger my people throughout the day. You got no enforcement to say you can stand here, you have to stand over there. It's basically.
I don't think it's so bad, I think we're talking about the vendors, not the parade part.
Yeah, I'm just spreading the out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be possible to control the.
Yeah, no, we're not even gonna try to do that.
Yeah.
Have we ever thought of a shorter day instead of the parade at 10? Maybe we do like 2 to fireworks or something.
No, we don't.
We don't have to.
We don't have the copy channels.
Right.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a
very good idea.
Yeah, we don't have to be a
Mhm.
28-hour.
Right, and the vendors to focus on dinner as
Yes.
opposed to just spread out.
And it might eliminate some of the vendors, they might decide it's not worth it, and they might decide to opt out.
Yeah, kind of along with Chris, well, with the fireworks and eliminate the parade.
Once a year.
So if they line up, I'm asking, they typically, everybody lines up a day up. 2 weeks out.
We can,
We got more information. We keep saying, we're not having a break, right?
we can also make it mandatory to sign up on the time, so we know what we're dealing with, and if you don't sign up, you're not in it this year, I'm sorry, we're under different.
I think that's more manageable
Yeah.
than the national.
But the thing with the parade, the people that's actually in the parade, they're gonna be spaced out.
Yeah, that's not-
The people that's on the side.
It's a crowd. It's not like a parade, it's a crowd.
Well, and part of that is their personal responsibility. You know, if they're there with their family, they're figuring out where they want to be. If I was a mom and had this group of 10 people, I'd kind of stake out where I want to be that's safest for my family. We can make those recommendations. We probably should say no candy.
And we could make the parade.
Yeah, nothing gets thrown out this year. You know, we have never really given anybody, I mean, I have a list of, but we really don't give anybody rules. Maybe if you get every rental, you know, when you do have a parade, these are the guidelines for this year. You need to spread out, you need to.
And can we stretch out the route?
I mean, the route goes
Like
from
the
Washington to, you know, all the way to Peach. If people that decide to get congested, we need to encourage them to, you know, there's a whole route. Go
And
down
push
Peach.
them on down, even if we down.
And that's what our beach attendants could do during the parade. They could-
Yeah.
Even though even if we don't have restrictions, we still want to be cautious, we still want to lead by example.
No way to do it. No way you can make people spread out.
And people have their spaced out areas year after year.
I said the same.
That's correct.
Twice, and I can tell you, I'm almost thirty from the work.
That's right.
I am still on the fence with the show, one day I'm like, yes, one day I'm no, it's just so many.
Again, we are not going to be able to achieve the social distancing requirements. None of us should have.
That's correct.
That's
That's correct.
It's not going to happen, and I'm not going to make my police force try to enforce it. It's not going to happen. Well, we have to go into this knowing that that's the case. Now, we can take mitigating factors. We can spread out the vendors. We can maybe condense the schedule. We can, not for candy. There's things we can do to try and help. But we're going to be overrun, and everybody's going to be shoulder to shoulder, no matter what we do. So, I mean, it just.
You're gonna have a certain amount of that in any event if we cancel all the events, there's still gonna be a crowd of people in town. And they're gonna be shoulder to shoulder walking up and down Mason Avenue all day long and on the beach.
But your out of town crowd won't come.
But they will.
Fireworks.
There, a lot of who's in the parade are short-term rentals and gas and drugs. They plan their whole week around it, so a lot of that's
Well,
gonna be.
doing that, a lot of times people drive in at night. Out of town, meaning not the tourists, but the people up in the county and.
Yeah. Yeah,
They flood into your night with fireworks.
they do. Can we ask the county, I mean, to me, this is a good thing to reach out to Charlie and say, we've appreciated, we hired a couple of guys in the past. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. We are providing a service to them.
The problem with that team is they're all out working as well.
Yeah.
They come down and they certainly help us every year, but if they get a call and that's why they have to go.
Sure.
So they have extra people on and they send everybody. It's the unknown that we are fearful of.
Right.
If they do get a call elsewhere.
Right.
I mean, when you're Jimmy had to go help them because. Right? I mean, just.
You can go on all night.
Yes.
Right, so if I could make a suggestion, then, Mr. Mayor, we tend to have meetings every 2 weeks, right? And now we're trying to get back into a cycle. 2 weeks from now will be time for another meeting. That's kind of seems like the go, no-go time for us to make a decision. Why don't we wait and see? My understanding, the way the governor's been working is he needs 2 weeks worth of trend data to feel comfortable about making the next step. So 2 weeks from now, hopefully we'll know if he's going to go to phase 3 or not and what that might look like. And Jen seems to think she could pull it off as soon as 2 weeks from now. So why don't we spend some time thinking about it? We'll spend some more time thinking about how we can condense it some. But let's make no illusions. There's no plan we're going to come up with. It's not going to have shoulder-to-shoulder people.
Right.
So why don't we do that? And you all can think about it, talk to your constituents, whatever you want me to do, and then we'll make the final call 2 weeks from now.
I'm all for that.
Anything else, any other updates, Mr. Hosey?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think, I won't push you to anything else tonight.
So that's the 16th.
That's a regular scheduled meeting, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's tonight. Yeah, the tonight was,
Tonight was a-
it would be the 18th. It would be the 18th. So the 4th and the 18th would have been our normal meeting nights
Okay.
anyway.
So let's get back on schedule.
So we'll get back on the 18th for a regular meeting. We can get you caught up in minutes and reports and other things that we typically do.
Amen. All right, we're still under the guidelines of the electronic meeting. I need to ask for a motion to adjourn. So move. What votes?
Yes.
Over, yes. Over.
Grossman, yes.
Vice Mayor Bennett?
Yes.
Councilwoman Holler? You got a yes, no, she's not.
He's not able.
Thank you all very much.